Jennifer Reinman here from Utterly Captivating Art, here to tell you about another poet and read some of her work. This is from my latest anthology, which is a cornucopia of words, poetry for Thanksgiving, so perfect for the season. So Alice Cary, she was born in 1820 on a farm about 10 miles north of Cincinnati, Ohio. She was part of a large family with 9 kids, and they lived far from the schools, so her parents could not really afford to give them all a good education. So she and her sister Phoebe, who just loved to read, and so they read everything they could and educated themselves as best they could. And their mom died when Alice was about 15, and their father remarried, and his stepmother was not particularly supportive of the girls supporting literary endeavors, but they did it anyway. They started writing little verses when Alice was about 17 and Phoebe was about 13, and they would get their verses published in newspapers. And their stepmother wouldn't let them use candles at night, and so they would have to get a saucer of lard with a little like bit of rag or something to use as a wick, so they would have light to read by or to write by. So they were very determined young ladies. They eventually got published in an anthology of women's poetry that was put together by a poet and anthologist named Rufus Wilmot Griswold. And he then helped them to put out their own anthology of poetry of their works. Um, and their works got a lot of good critical review from influential critics of the time. Some you might have heard of: Edgar Allan Poe, Horace Greeley, who was a big time publisher, editor, critic, and politician of the time. So the two of them put out several anthologies of their work, and then they became quite well known. They were writing for various magazines, and became really involved in the women's suffrage movement. And they were hobnobbing with many of the intellectuals of the time, people like P.T. Barnum, Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who was a big fighter for women's rights, Elizabeth Stoddard, lots of other people who were kind of all the movers and shakers of the art world. And they would get together at Alice and Phoebe's house on Sunday afternoons and talk about activism and get involved in the suffrage movement. And when Alice died in 1871, so she was 50 years old of tuberculosis, two of the pallbearers at her funeral were P.T. Barnum, yes, from the circus, and Horace Greeley. So that's just a little bit about her and her life. So I thought I would read you one of the poems from my anthology that I put together. So this is called Autumn. Shorter and shorter now the twilight clips the days, as though the sunset gates they crowd, and summer from her golden collar slips, and strays through stubble fields, and moans aloud. Save when by fits the warmer air deceives, and stealing hopeful to some sheltered bower, she lies on pillows of the yellow leaves, and tries the old tunes for over an hour. The wind, whose tender whisper in the May set all the young blooms listenin' through the grove, sits rustling in the faded boughs today, and makes his cold and unsuccessful love. The rose has taken off her tire of red, the mullein stalk its yellow stars have lost, and the proud meadow pink hangs down her head against earth's chilly bosom, witched with frost. The robin that was busy all the June, before the sun had kissed the topmost bough, catching our hearts up in his golden tune, has given place to the brown cricket now. The very cock crows lonesomely at morn, Each flag and fern the shrinking stream divides. Uneasy cattle low and lambs forlorn creep to their strawy sheds and nettled sides. Shut up the door. Who loves me must not look upon the withered world, but haste to bring his lighted candle and his storybook, and live with me the poetry of spring. That's Autumn by Alice Cary. That's it for me today. Look for my book on Amazon, A Cornucopia of Words, Poetry for Thanksgiving. It makes a great hostess gift if you're going to Thanksgiving dinner at someone's house, or if you just love poetry and want to get into the spirit of the season. Go check it out. I will put a link to it in the comments. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you again soon.